Hello and welcome to another edition of Up in the Air. I'm Hailey Mitchell alongside Dakota Smith.
Tonight we'll bring you our weekly analysis on the market of soybeans and natural gas, as well as a climate science feature on how clouds form in the tropical regions of the world.
We'll also have a meteorology minute about how the cold weather might be affecting your gas mileage, and the weather communication students will be back to tell us more about the history of the weather enterprise.
But first, we have Update in the Air. A recent article in Discovery News has found a positive spin on the impacts of climate change on the world's wine production. The article notes that some vineyards have encountered troubles in the traditional ways of growing grapes and producing wine. On the other hand, certain vineyards have discovered new methods and have even expanded due to the changing climate. In Germany, it was once a struggle to produce red wine. However, since conditions have been warmer on average, fine red wines are produced throughout Germany. This may be the trend in many areas where cooler temperatures have limited the productivity of vineyards. The vineyards that are projected to benefit the most from a warming climate are located in New Zealand, southern Chile, and parts of Canada.
The National Snow and Ice Data Center just announced that the melt season has started for the Arctic sea ice. Last year, the ice grew from a record low summer size of 1.3 million square miles to a total area of 5.84 million square miles. That's from about one-third the size of the U.S. to almost twice the size of the U.S. The record growth was primarily a result of the record low minimum last September, leaving a greater area of ocean surface uncovered to refreeze again this winter. The total area of Arctic sea ice for this winter is the sixth lowest in 30 years of satellite data. The lowest maximum extent occurred in 2011, and all of the top 10 have been from 2004 to 2013. Up next, we'll have our market analysis, where students from Weather Risk will update us on the soybean and natural gas markets.
On Friday, March 22nd, soybeans closed at $14.49 per bushel, which is a 14-cent increase from last week, and closed today, Monday, March 25th, at $14.37 per bushel, showing a slight decrease. Traders are awaiting the estimates for the USDA grain stocks and prospective plantings reports this Thursday, March 28th. However, for predicting May futures contracts, the USDA grain stocks report will be the most significant, in which typically if stocks come in higher than expected, the commodity will probably drop in price, and vice versa. Also, the greater difference between the estimates and the actual report numbers, the more you can expect the price to move. Delays in loading out shipping vessels in Brazilian ports continues to put stress on exporting soybeans, which is shifting some demand from South America to the north. Estimates conducted last Thursday estimated 83.5 million metric tons of soybeans harvested for Brazil and 51.3 million metric tons of soybeans harvested for Argentina. This estimate for Argentina is down from a previous 53 million metric tons. Dry and less cold weather will be favorable for soybean harvest in Argentina. Heavy rains in Brazil may hinder harvest, but could be good for pods still in the filling stages. For Up in the Air, I'm Rachel Rice.
Now we will switch gears and take a look at natural gas. What I have displayed here is known as a bar chart, and it shows the price trend over the past few months for a futures contract. A futures contract is a contractual agreement generally made on the floor of a futures exchange to buy or sell a particular commodity at a predetermined price in the future. In this case, the future date is June. On a bar chart, the price is depicted on the right. The vertical lines show the daily price movement. The tick marks on the left show the market's opening price, while the tick marks on the right show the closing price or the end price for that day. As you can see from the bar chart, there has been a sideways trend over the past few days with no significant change in prices. There are many things that affect the price of natural gas. One of the more important things that we will look at is weather and how that can affect the prices. For example, colder weather can drive up the prices by creating a demand. If the 10 to 15 day forecast is colder than normal, this will cause a higher demand and thus increasing the prices. A perfect example of this is the price movement that occurred about a week ago. Prolonged below average March temperatures caused the prices to rise and break a 52-week high. As you can see from the bar chart, the prices haven't returned to their previous price range. The prices have decreased a little as the temperatures are expected to warm up, but no significant changes are expected within the next few days. For Up in the Air, this has been Frank Schneider.
All Things Atmospheric is a segment that discusses the various drivers of climate science. Tonight, we'll bring you a feature about why clouds and precipitation processes occur in the tropical regions of the world.
For those of you who head south to the tropics during the summer, you'll likely experience those afternoon thunderstorms from time to time. They may frustrate you, but you might be out there wondering, why do they happen? Well, in an area called the intertropical convergence zone, they actually happen very often, and sometimes these can even form into tropical storms.
The intertropical convergence zone is a band of low pressure that results from trade winds from the northern and southern hemisphere that converge towards the equator. This band only encompasses a latitudinal range of about 10 degrees north and south of the equator. Abundant solar heating at the equator increases the sea surface temperature and causes the air to rise. The trade winds in the northern and southern hemisphere replenish this rising air at the equator, as these winds travel in a southwesterly and northwesterly direction, respectively. When these trade winds meet each other, they essentially neutralize each other and create very calm winds and a small pressure gradient at the equator. The intertropical convergence zone, or ITZZ, fluctuates seasonally. It is furthest north at the height of northern and southern hemisphere summers, which are in July and January, respectively. When the ITZZ moves away from the equator, circulation can occur because at the equator there isn't any Coriolis force. Along with the circulation and higher sea surface temperatures from solar heating, there is also significant divergence aloft due to the mass convergence at the surface. Occasionally, the convergence, warm sea surface temperatures, and circulation from the ITZZ leads to development of tropical systems such as Ernesto shown here. Ernesto trekked west along the ITZZ before pushing north and making landfall as a hurricane in Mexico.
So in summary, the intertropical convergence zone, or the ITCZ, is an area that experiences widespread thunderstorm activity during the afternoon in the summer season. So we might not have answered what you do to get rid of it, but hopefully we explained what it is. And next time you go down to the beach, hey, maybe you'll go out earlier in the day so that you don't have to go out in the afternoon walking in the rain.
Have you noticed a drop in your vehicle's fuel efficiency this winter? Can cold temperatures reduce your car's performance? There are a number of ways a vehicle loses efficiency in the winter. Believe it or not, the engine in most cars operates best at a temperature around 200 degrees Fahrenheit. In winter, the engine needs to warm up from a colder temperature, which takes more time and more money. When the weather turns bad, roads often become a mess. This usually means more spinning of the wheels and less moving around, which also means less MPGs. It may seem like physics is out to get us on this one, but there is at least one step you can take to preserve your fuel economy. Tire pressure affects fuel economy in several ways and is one of the most easily corrected problems a vehicle can face. A simple pressure gauge like the one shown here might cost around $5, and air compressors can be found at most gas stations. Use these earth gauge tips to help maintain your fuel economy. Check tire pressure at least once a month. Get the best reading by checking pressure when tires are cold. Tire pressure information can be found on an information label in the glove box or on the driver's side door jamb.
Last week on Up in the Air, we brought you an introduction to the National Climate and Weather Enterprise. This week, we'll hear a history on how the three sectors, government, universities, and commercial weather services have come together and grown to what we now know as the Climate and Weather Enterprise.
Three groups joined forces to tackle the future of our weather and climate enterprise. First is the government, who has a long-standing reputation as being one of the best for weather forecasting and observations. Next is education, which molds students into meteorologists and contributes significantly to the advancement of the field. The third is the private sector, which combines education, forecasting, observations, marketing, and new technology. All three sectors create the U.S. weather and climate enterprise and are working diligently to improve their areas of expertise so that they can improve the quality and utility of the system. What do Samuel Morse, the Smithsonian Institution, and Ulysses S. Grant have in common? They all contributed to the creation of the U.S. Weather Bureau. The invention of the telegraph by Samuel Morse in the 1840s opened doors for the development of a weather communication network. With this groundbreaking invention, the Smithsonian Institution developed the first weather communication system. Once this system was in place, President Ulysses S. Grant signed a resolution in 1870 creating the U.S. Weather Bureau. It was essential that this division be placed with the Secretary of War because military discipline would allow for promptness, precision, and punctuality. The 20th century is one of great progress and development for the National Weather Service. Radar was used to track the movement of weather systems, weather satellites were used, and numerical weather prediction all contributed to the rapid growth and advancement of the Weather Service. In 1859, the Pennsylvania State University offered the first class on meteorology, which taught farmers about meteorological factors that affect everyday farming life. The Massachusetts Institute of Technology offered the first graduate program in meteorology in 1928 and was founded by Swedish meteorologist Carl Gustav Rossby. Rossby also created the Department of Meteorology at the University of Chicago. Over the years, more and more schools started introducing meteorology as an undergraduate and graduate option. Today, there are over 130 schools recognized by the American Meteorological Society that offer a degree in the field. Since the early 1900s, weather research has expanded our knowledge of weather phenomena and contributed greatly to the advancement of our weather service as well as the private sector. A need for more weather research led to the creation of the University Corporation for Atmospheric Research and the National Center for Atmospheric Research. The most versatile contributor to the weather and climate enterprise is the private sector, which customizes weather information and tailors it to specific wants and needs of the public. The private sector made its first appearance in 1926 when the first full-time broadcast meteorologist was hired by WEEI radio station in Boston. 9 years later, the first weather forecast was made for a client by private meteorologists. As the private industry expanded, the first forecast was introduced on television in 1941, but it was not a human meteorologist. In fact, it was a furry forecaster known as Woolly Lamb who sang the forecast. By the late 1940s, the lamb lost its luster and real people began televising weather forecasts. These people, however, were not professional meteorologists. The real professionals were not televised until the late 1950s. It was here that we saw a boom in private research and forecasting companies, one being AccuWeather. Since their birth in 1962, AccuWeather has been one of the top private sector companies along with the Weather Channel. With support from the government and academia, the private sector grew exponentially, but the rapid growth caused overlap between the Weather Service and private companies, which has caused much debate as to how each sector should pursue their business. It seemed counterproductive that organizations did the same work, which is why, in 1948, the AMS convened a conference to explore the relationship between the government and private sectors. Since then, the relationship has undergone many changes to reduce competition amongst the two. The Fair Weather Report was published by the National Research Council in 2003, providing insight and suggestions on how all three sectors should operate. A report known as Weather Services for the Nation Becoming Second to None was published in 2012 and addressed these issues again to follow up the progress made since the Fair Weather Report. All three sectors continue to advance as they begin to coexist as one entity, and a promising future for the weather and climate enterprise lies ahead.
Well, it certainly is interesting how the U.S. weather and climate enterprise has grown and changed throughout the years.
Absolutely. And we'll see more on that next week. But for now, I'm Dakota Smith.
And I'm Hailey Mitchell. Be sure to join us next time up in the air.